Reflections, man. Getting off of work, late night reflections, man. Trying to start this little thing here, this little thing called reflections, I like to call it. Just driving home, YouTubing, thinking of some things. The biggest topic I wanted to touch on. The biggest topic that I wanted to touch on is it's unfortunate, man, that a lot of the brothers dealing with this UBN lifestyle, this New York City Blood lifestyle, is unable to get the story right. And what I mean by that is everybody that's most recently been interviewed, a lot of the older brothers, a lot of the brothers from the first generation has been interviewed. They've been spoken to, their stories has been put out there. However, on top of their stories is disputes, it's personal issues involved, it's political gain. When I mean political gain is everybody's self-preservation. Everybody wants to have their story outweigh the others. Everybody wants to, dispute and downplay the next man in his story. So what that makes is for tainted imagery. It's for individuals who are very reputable, individually and collectively, they're reputable, to have a tainted image. And once your image is tainted, it's very difficult, to project the image that you believe you're projecting, which is that of, a solid gangster. A lot of these individuals are presenting themselves as gangsters, but when they're on these platforms, they're getting asked questions, they're discussing history, but the way they put the history out there is just not articulate enough for an individual in their age brackets. And when I mean that, I'm not saying that they're not portraying the stories appropriately, that they're lying or telling any falsehoods. It's just that in the end, none of the issues are really spoken upon. None of the understanding has been made understood. Because it's an in-depth history with this New York City Blood thing. In my opinion, it's just my opinion, I think it's a little bit more interesting than our West Coast counterparts' upbringing, because we're similar in ways, because blood period, and when I say that, blood period, no matter what coast, east or west, has been born out of opposition. The West Coast counterparts, if you study and do their history dealing with the original Pyrus, was born out of the opposition for the Crips. And then it's, spread into multiple different sets and multiple different identifications of blood. All opposition, all going against the opposition. Just didn't start directly in prison, and it actually almost did start in prison, according to some of the history that I've seen on the Kev Mack podcast, as AC Baba Louie and all of them cited that they really started to unify themselves a little bit more in the youth authority system, which we call here DFY, OCFS, things like that. So we're similar in a lot of ways, as we all know why we started over here. And I just think that image is not projected enough. I just think that the understanding of what was going on with the black culture has not been projected enough. I think it starts to get touched on. Oh, we was going at the Latin Kings, we was cutting the at the eyes. But I think it stops there, and it starts to go back to individuals, contributing to their own imagery and their own sets imagery, instead of really discussing how the war was. I wouldn't even say it was won, but how the odds changed and why the odds changed. Some of the dynamics that made the odds change. It's almost theatrical. This could be a real in-depth, positive documentary if all of those brothers that's disagreeing get together as a collective and put something together, and not just promote the violence aspect of it and just really discuss maybe the Black and Puerto Rican relationships, the reasons it was like that. Just give some historical background, some historical content, man. If this is what you're aiming to do, because everybody already know we was tough, we was cutting people, we was getting super busy. We all know that, man. But a lot of this is getting played, and it's getting, misconstrued on these platforms with these individuals who's not even blood. They don't even understand this culture, and probably some of them were scared of Bloods in the time of the uprising in the 90s, because a lot of people were scared. Once you heard Blood in these high schools and junior high schools, they was clearing them shits out. I know that to be a fact. So we giving these individuals who's not really connected to the culture, so they don't really understand the politics. You got to be a Blood or a gang member or just a jailer to really understand some of these politics that these brothers are spewing and going through, because those are politics that, belong on the prison yard sometimes, because it's where a lot of that shit start and stem from. So I just wanted to reflect on that. I'll probably do this every once in a while as I get better at this, and just talk, and probably go live once in a while. But this is the type of video I'm just gonna put out. It's just a tester, just a feeler. As I drive home, and just really reflect on a lot of different things. This is just the first topic I wanted to reflect on, because this is what I've been seeing on my YouTube timeline all week. 3, 4, 5-part series, a lot of different things, man. But I got a lot of love and respect for the first generation. And when I discuss my past in relation to being a Blood, or why I even turned Blood, I would never regret it, because I came through the system of the juvenile system, the adolescent system. I came through these systems, and I understood, and I seen, and I witnessed firsthand, some of the hardships that, blacks faced when it came to the structure of the Lion Kings and the Yetas. Because their structure was like none other. You mess with one, you was messing with all, and they had a hell of a communication system. And that's just how it went. It was what it was. They were structured, we weren't. We were very loosely affiliated. Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, Bronx, guard bodies, Muslims, little Decepticons, things like that. We weren't organized at all. So I can never take away, or anyone can never take away, the structure that the Bloods brought to New York City. Because now there's brothers from Harlem, Bronx, Queens, everybody in one housing area, one building, and now you're able to have something in common, and you have a common reason to come to another brother's aid. It's a reason now. Now, at one point it was a reason, but it was Queens guards, Brooklyn guards, things like that, and it was still much more of a separation because of that. But that was a small population, the guard bodies. Although they were big, but it was still a small population, and it wasn't a large enough population at all times to go against the Lion Kings. Although the guards did their best, they did what they were supposed to do. And the Muslims, they did what they were supposed to do. They fought them all, and they were reputable in that fight, and that was quite a fight. But once the Bloods came, and the level of violence increased, the level of brotherhood increased, and the camaraderie increased for a short period of time until things went left with that as well. But that particular level of camaraderie should be celebrated more so than the other parts. Just the mere fact that at a time, outside of any political climate, brothers came together. It was definitely not for the best reason, but brothers came together and made something work, and actually won a war for a minute. Yeah, they won a war. Definitely won a war. So these are some of the things that it should be touched on. I'm just loosely discussing a lot of things, but I like to go in a little bit more in depth a little later on in my videos soon, and just give my perspective, my cultural perspective on just the New York City Bloods, myself. You know, from my own point of views, from my own understanding, you know, I rose to the heights. I mean, everybody when you're young, everybody wants to rise to certain heights. Everybody wants to be acknowledged as something different. Everybody in this life, you know, of street, you know what I mean, whether it's street, community, corporate, anything. Everybody wants to rise to the heights. Everybody wants to have that particular acknowledgement. You know, boss is considered a big homie in McDonald's. Boss is considered a big homie in the corporate world. Just like a gang member is considered a big homie in the subculture of the streets. So everybody wants to rise to that boss level. So it's understood when you do rise to it and you get to, you know, display it in such a way that only you can. So I don't knock that. But I just knock when you do it, but there's no content behind it. There's no understanding behind it. There's no respect behind it. It's just straight braggadocious gang shit, which is not something that you know, is beneficial at this particular moment in this time period of life. So, you know, I just feel like soon this New York City Blood thing could definitely be a positive document. Definitely gonna sign off. I'm definitely not gonna continue to discuss this particular topic right now. Just wanted to test this out on my drive home. Thinking about doing this a little bit more. There's some different topics that I think about throughout the day as I enter. So at this point, I'm going to sign off. Whoever listens. If you got anything to say, leave a comment, shout me out. You know, we'll take it from there. There's definitely a few people that I like to discuss in my next video, which is Snow Billy Kid. Very entertaining kid. He's a very entertaining kid. It's very difficult not to, you know, be entertained by that guy. But we'll touch on him. We'll touch on the boy. You know, we'll have a conversation about him on the next one.